Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. You're here for the Texas Democratic Party and Biden for President Texas spin room post-debate. We all saw what happened in that debate. Donald Trump refused to disavow white supremacism. He was a complete embarrassment, for everything that we saw there. It was just not something the real losers tonight were the American people. So joining us tonight are the Biden for Texas State Director Rebecca Acuna, State Representative Celia Israel, and eventually Executive Director of the Texas Democratic Party, Manny Garcia. He's doing a TV hit right now, though. He will be here very soon. The way this is going to work is that both Celia and Rebecca will give a few of their brief thoughts here, and then we'll take questions from the press. To ask a question, type it into the question box, and we'll get to the questions on a first-come, first-served basis. Again, to ask a question, just type it in the question box. We'll get to all of them as soon as we can. With that being said, Rebecca, would you like to kick this off?
Thanks, Obi. Look, I think Americans wanted to watch tonight to see what does this mean for me and my family. And what they saw was chaos caused by Trump that is similar to the chaos in his last 4 years of his presidency. He expressed no remorse for the 200,000 Americans who have lost their lives, the 7 million who have been infected, the 30 million who are in some form of unemployment. He treated them as if they were collateral damage. He refused to condemn white supremacists, saying, stand by. Just last year, we saw a white supremacists drive to El Paso to shoot down Mexican Americans on the Texas-Mexico border. This was nothing but chaos. He refused to talk about, he still doesn't have a plan to contain COVID. He didn't have one back then, and he still doesn't have one now. And people watching were reminded as to what is at stake in this election. We were reminded why we do this, why we are working every day to elect Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to get out of this Trump-created chaos that has caused lives across our country.
Thank you, Rebecca. Celia, do you have some more comments to add to that?
No, Rebecca kind of nailed it. I'm stunned. Actually, I'm a 56-year-old woman, and I've been involved in politics a long, long time, and I've never seen anything that is so disrespectful to the American voter. We want people to be excited and to be engaged and to come and learn about the candidates, hear them tell a story, learn something more about themselves. And I'm afraid all that people learned was that the president who continually practices the politics of playing the victim during a pandemic in which we've lost hundreds of thousands of American lives, disrespected them and disrespected our democracy today. It was a horrendous act, and I'm frankly just stunned at what I just saw tonight.
Thank you. And Manny, do you have any more comments to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we saw tonight that our nation is in a crisis of leadership, and that there was one person on that stage that is ready to go, has a plan, and really spoke directly to the American people and said, I understand the loss that you are going through right now. I understand what is at stake, and I'm ready to get something done. And then Donald Trump just refused to accept any accountability, any responsibility. We all know someone who has passed away from COVID by this time, and it is hurting. And he refused to feel anything with the country, the way we are all going through this right now. And then he refused to denounce white supremacy. And for Texans, for folks that have felt this and the consequences of this so head on, this isn't just a conspiracy theory on Twitter for us. This is real life. This is family members and friends in our community who have been shot down because of white supremacy. And for the president of the United States to say stand by is disgusting and despicable, and it reminds us why we need a person with decency and empathy to go back into the White House and to bring some leadership back to this country.
Great. Thank you all for speaking. We're now going to take questions here. Remember to ask a question, type it into the question box. We'll get to these questions on a first come, first served basis. So first question is from John Moritz. He says, would you advise Biden to debate again? And if so, what could be gained by Texas voters from a second or third debate?
I'll say that I would advise the moderators of the next debate to please step up and please take a responsibility for the American people here. They have to call out lies when they see it. That is the job of the press. We respect all of you. We understand that under this administration, you have been under attack the same way that we have been under attack. But it is critically important that the American people have a fair debate stage to see what is going on and understand people's plans. You know, I think Joe Biden is ready to speak any day in front of anyone, anytime about what his vision is for the future. But I think it's really important that the moderators understand what Donald Trump's game is and what he is trying to do, because he has decided that it is a political strategy that is beneficial to him to attack moderators, interrupt, create chaos on the stage, and that somehow gets him to win. And unfortunately, it does an incredible disservice to the American people. And I think that is the role of journalism and the role of the press is to call the balls and strikes, right? And I think it's very clear that there is work to be done there.
I'll add to that. Like, Joe Biden has a plan to finally tackle COVID that includes PPE, masks, vaccine, paid family leave. He has a Build Back Better plan to get our economy back on track. But at the same time, it felt like there was no moderator there. And it was just embarrassing to watch the President of the United States lie over and over and show no remorse for the American people. The city of Laredo, where I grew up, was the first place in Texas to have a mask mandate because of the high numbers, families affected, small businesses affected, and to the President of the United States, this is all just a joke. I love hearing Joe Biden speak. I love hearing about his plan. And like Manny said, I hope the moderators take the reins moving forward.
Great. Next question is from Veronica Calderon of Univision. She says, Latinos make about 30.4% of eligible voters in Texas. As Rebecca mentioned, as Texas Latinos witnessed more than a year ago, El Paso was a victim of a white supremacist attack. How does this, in your opinion, resound in the Texas Latino community, the second largest of the country? And the answer can be in English.
Voy a empezar en español, Verónica. Para mí esto es muy personal. Mi mamá vive en El Paso ahorita, mis tías viven en El Paso y hoy el presidente no dijo nada en contra de los white supremacists. El año pasado alguien manejó horas del norte de Texas a ir hasta El Paso para balacearnos, para matarnos. Me duele bastante que no le importamos a este presidente, que no siente el dolor que sentimos y que lo haya dicho en frente de todo el mundo hoy.
I think it's also obvious to those of us in the Latino community that our Latino brothers and sisters are being impacted by COVID in larger numbers. We are the essential workers. We've understood that. But there, again, was no empathy from this president to say, I hear you, I feel you, and we're going to do better by you. We are a very loving and trusting community, but this president was too busy doing his Operation Chaos to give us anything reassuring or anything quite like what we would expect of a president.
Great. Rebecca, can you also answer that in English as well?
I said, like, this was that was very painful for me. My mother lives in El Paso. My aunt and my cousins live in El Paso. I lived in El Paso as a kid. It was just so painful to hear the president refuse to condemn white supremacists. Not only refuse to condemn them, but to say stand by. When just last year, white supremacists drove from North Texas hours to El Paso, Texas to shoot Mexicans and Mexican Americans. We were reminded that he does not give a damn about Latinos. And we always knew that, but today he said that in a global stage. This is why we have to do everything to get him out of office and replace him with Joe Biden.
Great. Next question is, so who do you guys think won or lost this debate?
It's laughable because I just want to go at the premise of this question just from the get-go here. And I understand it's part of the job to ask, who won or lost the debate. But I think anybody who saw this debate, Republican, Independent, Democrat alike, was not proud of what the person in the White House was doing and saw a person who is just a fundamental, decent, empathetic leader in Joe Biden, who is ready to take the reins of this country and ready to lead us through this crisis. So, if you need me to say it, of course, Joe Biden won the debate. But I think anybody who watched this saw that our country is in a real crisis right now. Hundreds of thousands of people are dead. And we cannot have the president in the White House acting like a child on stage, disrespecting Americans and pandering to white supremacists because he's going to get some cheap votes out of it.
There was no winner because there was no good way, sound, professional, mature way for these two men to exchange ideas when one of them was hell-bent on chaos. The loser tonight was the American people.
Great.
And I don't take pride in saying that.
Listen, I feel more energized than ever to continue my work to elect Joe Biden after watching this debacle created by Donald Trump tonight.
Great. Next question is, there were a lot of questions that were directed specifically to the Midwest. Do you guys wish there were more questions directed specifically to Texas?
Look, I think a lot of the conversation at the very beginning was about healthcare, COVID, and the economy. And Texas is the nation's capital of the uninsured. We have been feeling the brunt of the economy right now, where people are doing their damnedest to put food on the table. I think we all saw the lines at San Antonio Food Bank and how Texans are trying to scrap right now to make ends meet. So those questions may have been about what's going on to the entire country, but those questions were about us. We understand the flaws of when Republicans refuse to have a plan and invest in our communities, what happens to our families and to our communities. And I think we saw on that stage why it's critically important that someone is ready to lead, that somebody has a plan to get things done, and why we need to work together at every single level of government to get ourselves through this crisis.
Great. Anyone else want to answer that one?
Yeah, I agree with Manny. We have seen COVID affect us all here. We have seen what has happened because of failed leadership by Republicans. Yes, Donald Trump, but also Republican leaders right here in the state. And we are contrasting that with Joe Biden's plan to listen to the doctors, listen to the science, promote mask wearing, encourage paid sick leave. So absolutely, what was talked about in terms of COVID, in terms of healthcare, affects us right here in Texas.
Great. The next question is for both English and Spanish answers. We wish there were more questions directed towards Latino needs in the Latino community as there were with the African American community.
Para mí, escuchamos todo lo que necesitábamos. Nadie más, no hay ninguna otra comunidad que ha sido más afectado por el coronavirus que la comunidad hispana. También somos la comunidad con el menos acceso al cuidado de salud y lo escuchamos fuertemente cuando dijo que no va a decir nada en contra de los white supremacists. Yo viendo eso como una mujer hispana de la frontera, yo me siento muy orgullosa de estar trabajando por Joe Biden y más después de haber visto a este presidente esta noche.
Yeah, I mean, these questions were about healthcare, COVID, the economy, climate change. And what I hear from young Latinos and Latinas is they want an answer on climate change. They want a president who's going to lead on climate change, and Joe Biden is that president and laid out that plan. Latinos are on the front lines right now, working every single day, putting themselves at risk on and facing COVID-19 and facing the brunt of COVID-19. And so when somebody says, I have a plan to work on this, it's directly related to the future of the Latino community. Of course, it affects all of us. But right now, Latinos in Texas are dying at a remarkable rate. And we're the folks that get up every single day and are the essential workers of the state.
Great. We have time for only a couple more questions here. This next one is directed towards Rebecca. So do you believe that if Biden or Harris visited, it would be a boost to Texas Democrats? And are there any plans for them to do so?
Oh, listen, I think that we are all excited about listening, about seeing and listening from them, and you'll hear more on that soon.
Great. And last question here. If you could sum up the debate in 3 words, how would you describe it?
Sad, chaotic, urgent.
Great. Anybody else want to do it?
Embarrassing.
I just, there was a number of times when Joe Biden spoke directly to the camera, and I just saw empathy. Mm-hmm. And that's someone who understands that people are going through a lot right now. It was very clear that Donald Trump doesn't give a damn what everybody else is going through. But I think there was moments that cut through all of the chaos, and Joe Biden spoke directly to us, and I think we saw empathy in him, and I think that's what people want. I mean, look, we're all cynical about what's going on, and we're all cynical about this system that is tilted against us and tilted against hardworking families. But we saw someone who understood what we were going through, and said that we can get through this.
Para agregar eso en español, lo que dijo Manny es muy cierto. Sí hubo un momento cuando vimos al vicepresidente viéndonos hacia la cámara y sentiste que finalmente hay alguien, estás viendo a un líder que a quien le importamos, a quien nos entiende, a quien sabe que todos estamos pasando por un tiempo muy difícil. Y eso fue un momento tan importante para nuestra comunidad, es volver a ver a alguien que nos entienda y a que le importemos.
Great. And another reporter here says shit show is only 2 words. But with that being said, we're going to pass this off to you guys for closing thoughts here. Rebecca, we'll start with you.
Hey, I'm sure like all of your viewers, you're more energized than ever. We saw a steady leader tonight when we saw Joe Biden. We have heard about his plans to get COVID under control, to help expand access to healthcare, to protect the Affordable Care Act. And then we saw in 90 minutes a glimpse of what the chaos has been like under a Trump presidency. For many Americans, for many Texans, we know that what made it harder to watch President Trump is to know the real impact that his failed leadership has had on our lives. We know someone who's passed from COVID. We've known someone who's gotten sick. We all know someone who's lost a job, who's lost income, who's had to visit a food bank for the first time. But we got to contrast it with someone who cares about people like us. And that is why we are here. We are fighting to elect Joe and Kamala and Democrats up and down the ballot so that we no longer have to live in fear that our commander-in-chief tells white supremacists to stand by, and that instead we will have a leader with a plan who cares about people like us.
Great. Celia, do you want to go next?
Yeah, the common phrase I've been using is that November 3rd is a reset button for this country. This country is divided. We're hurting in many different ways, not just the pandemic, but social justice issues are real and need to be addressed by real grown-ups and real patriots. And the president tonight showed us that he's not a patriot. He cares more about himself than he does about the country that needs him to step up and be a grown-up. So I'm angry with him, but I know that there are people who do love this country and who are going to crawl over crushed glass to make sure that their vote is counted this November. I predict a historic turnout in this state because we love this state, we love this country, and we know how important it is for us to vote in the year 2020.
Great. And Manny?
Yeah, I think what we saw tonight is that it's never been more clear that we need true leaders in office who can get us through these moments of crisis at every single level. If we look at Texas right now, we're the biggest battleground state in the country. We're 9 seats away from flipping the Texas House, and Celia is going to get us there. We got 10 congressional districts at 10 points, and we're going to win these things. We got a United States Senate race within the margin of error, and MJ Hager is ready to win and ready to lead, and the kind of person that we need in the United States Senate. And tonight, Joe Biden showed us all again how critical and how important it is to have a person in the White House that understands what regular people are going through, and how critical it is to have a plan to move our country forward and what that does for our daily lives. To get us all ahead. And I agree with Rebecca. I am energized. I am hopeful. I know this is going to go down as a night as one of the darkest moments in American political history. And yet, as we go through this, I see the volunteers and the activists and the candidates and the people who are working hard every single day to make a change in our state and in our country, and I believe in them. I believe that we can fundamentally change our state and our country. And when every single one of us looks around and says, "I've lost someone to COVID-19," or "I'm dealing with a job issue because of COVID-19," or "my friend is," or "my family member is," they understand that something has to change. And over the next several weeks, there are going to be tough conversations across this state. And people are going to be talking to each other about the future of their community and of their families and what we need to do to make that change. And tonight we saw that Joe Biden is ready to be a partner with the American people, and to make sure that we can get this country back to normal. And as he says, to build that better, that we can get this country back to a place where every single one of us has a fair shot to get ahead. So tonight we are recommitted in our efforts to flip Texas, to flip the Texas House, to expand our majority in the United States House, and to win in the United States Senate, because we know that everything is on the line, everything is at stake, and it is critically important that we win.
Great. Thank you guys all for joining us. I see there are a few more questions here. To ask speakers the question, please email me at abhi@txdemocrats.org. Again, that's abhi@txdemocrats.org. I'll connect you with the speaker for the question. Besides that, thank you all for joining us this evening. It was a very interesting evening. Until next time, thank you.